in Gautier, who was supposed to be, who's supposed to be a Kreider-like player, or eventually will develop into a Kreider-like player. So I'd like to see him get off the fourth line,
Well, that's
and
the
maybe
problem because if you're on Kako's line, you're not going to get any points. So they got to get him off that line. We're never going to see if Gauthier can score
well,
because Kako can't score.
yeah, and look, I like Di Giuseppe, but putting him, on the first line with Buchnevich and Zibanejad, just I'd rather see Gautier up there. He's a pure goal scorer.
Big
You know,
guy,
yeah,
throw him in front of the net like Kreider would go. I
yeah,
hear you.
exactly. I mean, yeah, he's a similar type player. So I mean, that seems to me like the easy move. I mean, or the obvious move to make. But Quinn has decided to go in another direction. Quinn did say he spoke to Buchnevich and Zibanejad about who would fit in well on that line, and they had advocated, I guess, with Di Giuseppe. At least that's what Quinn was saying, and I appreciate that Quinn at least went to the guys and said, who would you like to play with? And look, if Di Giuseppe's name came up, I think you would have to default to what those guys are saying, at least initially. But now after 3 losses in a row, maybe you have to juggle things a little bit, see how Gautier looks, on that first line with those guys, and you take it from there. I do like that Quinn has tried to go with the hot hand where he's putting Panarin and Zibanejad together when he needs goals, which is good. When you lose a player like Kreider, you almost have to double up here a little bit with your top players. So I like that he's at least going for it. He did that in the Montreal game and it paid off. He went back to it against Philly or against the Flyers as well a couple of times. So I don't mind him doing that, but yeah, I'd like to see go. That's my one issue now is I'd like to see Gauthier get a little bit more of a role with this team with Kreider out because again, he's not going to be as good as Kreider, but he does play a similar type game. So put him in there, see what happens. I mean, there's nothing to lose at this point. I mean, you're fighting for this playoff spot. You're in a spot that you really don't expect to be. And now the expectations last week, the expectations were starting to get a little bit higher for this team as far as making the playoffs. After the injury and this 3-game losing streak, I think the expectations are back to, hopefully we'll do it. And you might as well take a chance with the kid. Again, what do you have to lose?
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and it's also been this is quick, man. To lose a major guy in your lineup, and for Quinn to have to make these adjustments in a quick kind of turnaround. I mean, obviously he's got to go to his, DG's obviously earned his time as far as him being here a lot longer than Gauthier and everything else, and as far as him getting the shot first, there's nothing wrong with that. But maybe we'll be interested to see what the lines are tomorrow. How the practice goes and everything else, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, it seems like that should be the obvious way to go, and give it time. Like I said, it's been 3 games, and it's a lot to take in. I mean, it's kind of funny when you go back to the night before the trade deadline and everything else, and then learning that morning about Shesty and Booch being in that accident, and then you get through that, you get the signing, and then we look like we're going into that Flyers game, we're looking like we're ready to go here. I mean, what am I saying? We had the Canadians first there, but I'm saying and the Islanders. But going in, we're looking kind of flying. Everything was okay, especially getting through the the car accident thing, and obviously the guys not really being moved and all that other stuff. And there's nothing you can do. I guess as an organization, as a coach, as a lineup. A guy that's not in the locker room. Kreider's obviously a big voice in the locker room, too, and on the bench. So it's a big thing for them to kind of deal with, But, they're all big boys. They get paid a lot of money. This is the gig, and they got to get out there, and they got to, they got to suck it up. The thing
Yeah,
is go ahead.
No, I was going to say, no, I agree that I think that injury took a toll on them immediately. I mean, they were up 1-0 in that game, and you thought, here we go. We've won all these games in a row and 9 in a row on the road, and we're going to win another one. It's going to be 10. And he goes down with that injury, and it just deflated the team. I mean, they haven't been the same since he's gone down, and I hate to just sort of blame it on that and make that kind of excuse, but he's just such a huge part of this team, or he's been a huge part of this team, especially this year with his goal scoring. But like you said, on the bench in the locker room, and for them to see a guy like that go down, especially a team this young, as the young guy seeing a veteran player such as Kreider go down, you wonder if look, that took a little bit of an emotional toll on this team, and the Flyers took advantage of it. They're a good team. I can't take that away from the Flyers, but I think the injury did. I think it messed with what they had going on. I think it had an effect or an impact on the team's performance mentally and physically. And hopefully now the Blues game sort of got a little bit of the mojo back. They didn't win, but it was definitely a much better performance than they had against the Flyers. And well, like you said, we'll see what happens tomorrow night. But I do think that the injury itself really took its toll on the team. I think it had a negative impact and has led to this sort of 3-game slide.
Yeah, and I think it coincides with the fact that the guys are tired. They've been on that stretch, high-level hockey, bit of travel in there, and they looked real tired against the Flyers too. And I think that obviously in terms of the penalties, in terms of the penalty kill, they let up another 40 shots in the first game against the Flyers, and then last 2 games obviously they brought it down on the 30 again, so they kind of readjusted a little bit. But, I guess, in terms of, where we should be as a fan base, up, down, looking at the team, everything else, the young, the rebuild. I mean, this gets back to it, I guess, more than anything. And we can joke about the wins and losses. Look, we're still in this. It's a ride. There's still a lot of time left to see what happens. And the team itself has proven that it can readjust, and it could get on another run here. We'll see what happens. I mean, this is a high-end time of the year for everybody, in terms of injuries, in terms of intensity level, in terms of the compact games now. A lot of the games are getting a little closer now. So it's a stretch run. So, hey, look, they're in it. So we'll have some fun with it, and we'll just kind of deal with how they're dealing with it up against the backdrop, KD, of the fact that they weren't even supposed to get a sniff, let alone be 4 to 6 points out of a playoff spot with a little less than a month to go here in the season. So, bravo to the Rangers. The squad's good. We hang in there. And again, this is, I was pumped last week. I was fired up. I was calling for the Flyers. I wanted them. I wanted to give it to them. I wanted the team to show us that they could plow through those guys and jack up that rivalry up a little bit again and get on the other side. And we got our asses kicked. It is what it is. And through the Kreider thing that we just talked about and everything else. But even as a whole, maybe even Quinn got out coached a little bit. AV's doing a hell of a job over there. And the Flyers just simply look like a well-oiled machine, took care of business, and like I said, they're up on the Caps tonight 5-2. So, they're kind of steamrolling along. So we look back now at this team. There's still, like I said, there's a lot of positive things. There's a couple of negative things we're definitely going to tap into tonight. And I want to go into some of Quinn's notes last night, his post-game conference. But what I want to ask you now is, I guess we got to talk about Hank here a little bit, and your take of him going in, obviously the performance and everything else. And I mean, if you're Coach Quinn, I mean, what do you do here? Let's say Shesterkin's not going to be back in here, and let's just take him out of it for right now. How do you go the rest of the way here, Kevin? In terms of, you just put Georgie in for every game? Are you afraid to come back? I mean, I think it's just a lousy situation for Hank. Just in overall. Just the fact that he's missed so many games, and then it was just frustrating to see him go through that the other day.
Yeah, the most disappointing part for me in the game itself is, this guy has been there for this team and has, helped the defense through a number of struggles over the years, and he stepped up when the teams needed him. And on Sunday, he needed the team to step up in front of him, and they didn't. They let him down. After, all these years of him making up for mistakes, they couldn't be there for him. And to start the game off where you're giving up, you're taking these penalties and you're putting the Flyers right on the power play. Hank's got to deal with these tough shots right off the bat. It would have been nice for them to play some, tough defense, him get a couple of nice, easy shots to start the game, get his rhythm going, But they didn't do it. They let him down. I think the team absolutely let him down. Now, do I think that Lundqvist played well? No, he didn't. But what do you expect from a guy who hadn't played, in over a month or whatever it was, almost a month? So, I wasn't expecting much for him, but I was expecting the team to step up in front of him the way he stepped up for the team all these years, and they let the guy down. There's no other way to say it. And it was tough to watch because he didn't look good. The team wasn't playing well in front of him, and it was just a disappointing spot overall. Now, I don't think that Quinn can just not play him going forward. I mean, you can't just give Georgiev all the games now. I don't think that's fair to Georgiev. I'm sure he'd love to play every game, but he's still a young guy, and I don't know if he's ready to be playing every game. So Lundqvist needs to be out there. Plus, if God forbid something happens to Georgiev, you have to go to Lundqvist, and if he's not playing for another 2 weeks or whatever it is, that's a bigger problem. So. I think I don't know if did they announce the goalie for tomorrow against the Capitals? I mean, I think that they should go back to Georgiev tomorrow if they haven't announced yet. And then look, they play the Devils on Saturday. It's got to be Hank's game. I think he's got to be in there for that game. You have back-to-backs next week. I think you split them in those games in Dallas and Colorado. Give whatever game you want to give Hank. It doesn't matter. And I think you go from there. So you get him a couple more games. So now he's played 3 times in 2 weeks, and he'll probably be much better at that point. So I think you still have to go back to him. I still think he's a good goaltender. I didn't think he played that well. He looked rusty. I mean, what do you expect? Yeah. He's been in tough. So I don't blame Quinn for that either. I see a bunch of Ranger fans blaming Quinn, and he hasn't handled it well. Handle what well? He's been given this 3-goalie monster. Georgiev and Shesterkin have been playing better than Lundqvist and should be getting the starts anyway because they're the future. And Shesterkin got into a car accident. I mean, you got to go to Hank eventually. I mean, I don't blame Quinn for it. It's just the situation that ultimately played out. So, it is what it is. I'm disappointed that the team didn't step up for Hank. But I think that Quinn shouldn't, worry about, or he should have confidence going back to Lundqvist. I think the Saturday's game against the Devils is a perfect spot to get him back in there at home against, a team that's not very good. And hopefully he'll get some confidence in that game. And then you can go back to him next week, I guess, against Colorado. If you want to give Georgiev the game in Dallas, it's back-to-back, and you go from there. So it was tough to see. Look, Lundqvist is getting older. This is what we all expect. His skills are going to be diminishing. And what compounds that is the guy he plays once a month. So it's just a tough situation all around. And, if the team's not going to help him out, he's going to have a tough time in there.
Yes, that was on full display. There's no doubt about it. Yeah,
I mean, they didn't give up a lot of shots. I mean, as you said, they give up like only 26 shots, but they left him out to dry. It's not like those were 26 shots from the blue line. I mean, power play, the shorthanded breakaway. I mean, like I said, it didn't make life easy for him.
Well, I mean, that's probably where we can steer into the defense here a little bit, and obviously the penalty kill. I mean, a bunch of the goals against Georgiev and Hank, they were just, like I said, they were just hung out to dry. Some of them, it was just awful. We've gone back and forth with the defense. This group that we got, we all dig them and stuff. But man, when they play bad, Kevin, they play bad, and it just, to me, it drives me crazy. Sometimes it's just general fundamental, bantam level hockey mistakes in terms of coverage and playing the man and not playing the puck. Positioning on penalty kill, all that kind of stuff. What did you see?
Yeah, I said it one day, traded Shea. I think the defense would take a step back. I think that's a big problem. You lose a guy like that, even though he's not on a defensive pair with Stahl or anybody. I just think the cohesiveness of the entire 6-man unit gets thrown out of whack a little bit. I don't think Smith has been terrible, but you're bringing a new guy in who hasn't played defense in like a year. And I just think that throws things off a little bit, different tendencies from different players. I think the penalty kill has been a big problem as well. I mean, these guys have taken penalties. No bigger culprit than Strome, who takes like 2 a game.